liberty and justice for all.
Okay, old business. If there is no 18, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for an announcement, please.
Motion.
Stubbs, County Housing Act.
Foreclosure prevention. We're going to do free credit checks at the facility.
And the rest.
Well, you're considered if it's a $7,500 forgivable. I read
this information that you have. Is there a number they can contact you directly? I see it's on the flyer, but is that the number you would? Could you just say that number for those who are not in attendance?
For those who are not in attendance, my direct contact number is area code 773-706-6700. It's also on the flyers I've handed out. But for you who are not in attendance, that is 773-706-6700. You reach me directly, and we have loan officers that will be available on the spot and prior to the event and after the event. We'll be able to assist you with these services that we're going to have them in one place on Saturday, but prior to the event and after the event, we can also put you in contact with the services. So there's no disconnect for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Meadows.
Thank you, trustees. I appreciate your time. Thank you, citizens of Dolton.
Okay, we have one other announcement. Trustee Stubbs, you have an announcement concerning the recycling program.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to see you all come out. On Saturday, that's this Saturday, July 15th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 14022 Park Avenue, and that's behind the fire department, station number 1. We're having the recycling event again, where you can come. Anything with a cord qualifies as an electronic. You can bring it in, and this service, once you bring all your items in, if you have any, I stress any, old computers, we have a program where the veterans refurbish them and they get paid for doing this service. That keeps them employed. So I'll look forward to seeing all these lovely faces this Saturday. That's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 14022 Park Avenue for the recycling program. Thank you and have a great evening.
Are there any other trustees with any announcements for the general public and this board? I think Ms. Stubbs, you had another one.
I'm so sorry. Just a reminder, Dolton Park District is having their 90th anniversary Red and Black Tie Gala event, and that's this Saturday at 1515 East 154th Street. I'm sorry, that's July 14th, this Friday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Dinner is served at 7 p.m. For ticket information, you can call 708-841-2111. I was at the Dolton Park this past Saturday doing a paint party, and it was excellent. So I ask everybody to participate also in all our Park District events. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other announcements?
Yeah. Is Trustee Stan Brown here? I don't know. Oh,
did you want to read that announcement, Mr. Brown, concerning the death after the free property tax assessment, the property after death workshop in South Holland on Saturday?
And before Trustee Stan Brown give his announcement, I just want to give y'all some news. We lost a good person in the race for his re-election, but Trustee Stan Brown is now the new commissioner for Dolton Park. So let's give Stan Brown. All right, Stan. So now y'all can go over there, bug him.
Thank you, Trustee. Thornton Township and Cook County Recorder of Deeds presents free property tax assessment and property after death workshop. Saturday, July the 15th at 11 a.m., 333 East 162nd Street, in South Holland. Learn more about your upcoming homeowner assessments, process coming in August, and how to fix tax appeal. Learn how a new law allows you to transfer your home, car, and bank account to loved ones without the need for a will, trust, legal fees, or court costs for you and your loved ones. The process is simple and easy. Cassandra Hobart is the assessor for Thornton Township. She has a wealth of information. Please come out and get this information and utilize this. When you have someone that's sharing this type of information, don't let it get away from you. I'd like to thank you, board. I'd like to give kudos to this board. Wish you had another spot up there, get 7 trustees.
I like that.
Because I feel you guys have really brought some good ideas together. And the old Dalton Bear cliche is don't stop, don't quit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if there are no other announcements, we'll get right. I'd like to go back to regular business. I'd like to make the motion to go into regular business.
Second.
Trustee, it's come to my attention that we neglected to do a roll call for suspension, so I don't think we need to do one to return.
Okay. Okay. As I prefaced a few meetings ago in our finance meeting about the deficit that was looming over the head of the village of Dolton, at that time I believe it was, I want to say 5.1 million. Is that correct, Ms. Redmond? Well, I want to publicly thank Trustee House. He looked at the budget and he found where we can also make some reductions, and we've also made some reductions and cuts as we talked about before, and I believe now our deficit has been lowered to $2.8 million. What does that mean in layman's terms? That means that we would be spending $2.8 million over the scheduled budget. So our job here, those of us who have a fiduciary responsibility to this village, and you, of course, is to find ways to increase revenue. So we have some proposals on the table. Our final budget will be presented at the next board meeting. I noticed that there has been a notice sent out, and I'll read it for the sake of our streaming audience, plus those of you who are here. I'll read it because this was in my mailbox. I didn't receive an email, but it says, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to Section 829 of the Illinois Municipal Code, the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Dolton, Cook County, Illinois, will hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. That's next Monday, July 17th, here at the Village Hall, 14122 Chicago Road, to consider the appropriation ordinance, budget ordinance for the fiscal year commencing May 1st, 2017, and ending April 30th of 2018 next year. Members of the public will be allowed to comment on the proposed ordinances at the public hearing. A copy of the draft appropriation ordinance is available for viewing in the office of the village clerk. And I'd like to add an addendum to that, that those of you who are present can also chime in at the point of citizens' address. But I believe all of you all have a copy of this budget. Is that correct? No. Okay. Where can they get a copy of the budget? I know, but can somebody facilitate that for the residents? Can we get 2 men or 3 men to get them and distribute them, please? Thank you. Ms. Redmond, if you wouldn't mind, kind of go over some of the line items. Again, nothing has been written in stone. One of the things that we will be proposing is generating revenue. I believe last year we collected approximately, what, 70% in retail taxes last year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So our, if you would go over those line items that would be relevant to the residents as far as those that revenue that would be collected, our expenses, and some of the challenges that we have before us, Ms. Redmond. And those copies will be distributed to you all. Also, be aware before you start, I'm sorry, Ms. Redmond, we are streaming live on YouTube, and this is a question to the media director. We are not live on Facebook. I was instructed that we would be live on YouTube and Facebook. Is that correct?
Yes, on Facebook.
Okay, let me go there again because I didn't see it. The reason why I'm bringing this up, because those of you who are watching at home, you can type in some of your questions or concerns, and we'll try to read them all live so that everyone here can know. So I'm going to Facebook now. Nope, not seeing it. Do you have it on Trustee Henyard live on Facebook?
I'll go to it now.
While she's doing that, Ms. Redmond, could you take us to page 1 of 11? Everybody has a copy? How many does not have a copy? Okay. Do we see how many we need to print? Could you hold your hands up, please? I'm sorry, this is like class, but we need to know how many we need to print. So those of you who don't have one, if you can share with your neighbor for right now till we get one to you.
We live. Trustee.
She said.
Technical difficulties with my Facebook. I'm not able to see it live, so I'll go to our YouTube page and look at it there. Okay, Ms. Redmond, floor is yours.
Thank you, Trustee. So as Trustee Muhammad pointed out, Trustee House did a reassessment of our proposed fiscal year 18 budget. The biggest revenue sources that we have for our general fund would be property taxes. As many of you, if you all have your proposed drafts, property taxes increased from the original budget that was distributed on May 18th. Property taxes, we are proposing to collect just shy of $5 million. Another big revenue source would be state income taxes at $1.8 million. As well as another change that we had just done in this proposed budget is to increase the garbage collection fees. Currently, we're at $18.29. We are proposing to increase to $20.50.
What line item is that so we can follow you, Ms. Redmond?
That is 0100369. So with a $2 increase, we can expect to collect an additional $200,000 per year. The very last column.
Yeah, we're on, for everybody's clarity, we're on page 1 of 11. That's your very first page. And the items we covered thus far, if you look to your left, the GL number, the first 2 numbers she made reference to was 100311 and also 313. And then down near the bottom, garbage collection 369, those last 3 numbers. Everybody follow that? Thank you.
Yes, that's a big source of revenue as well, and we are projecting $1.8 million for sales tax, for state income tax, I'm sorry.
That's an increase?
Yes. Last year, we budgeted 2.1, we received 1.3, but we're expecting 1.8. You're welcome.
And for those of you who have any questions, just take notes on your sheets, and then we'll address them all at citizens' address. We want to try to expedite our way through this so we can get your input on this and present our final budget on a week from today. Are we still on page 1, Ms. Redmond?
We are done with page 1. If we go to page 2, there was a change to line item 0112536, which is janitorial services. That was decreased from $25,000 to $7,800. There was also a decrease for 0112571, which is on page 2 of 11. That was decreased to $200,000. If we go to page 3, there were a couple of items that were removed. 0114652. I'm sorry, that was decreased. I'm sorry, not 652, 562 was removed.
Travel expense?
That was removed. If we go to line item 0115421, part-time clerk was removed. And that's on page 3 of 11. If we skip to page 5 of 11, line item 0125594 was decreased to $500.
Okay, those last 3 digits were 59.
For
I'm not seeing that on page 5. Okay, page 5 of 11. Item number
594.
0125. Okay. Sorry.
0125594 was decreased to $500, as well as 0125651 was decreased to $500.
What was that number?
0154 was.
Can everybody hear Ms. Redmond on her mic? Can you all hear her clearly? Because I can barely hear. Can we?
42842.
Yes, ma'am.
30. The middle of page 6.
Okay, so you said
Yes.
Department has a separate office supplies line item is to track the purchases per department, but they are purchased, and general office supplies are purchased in bulk and distributed, and the costs are allocated across the departments.
So do you know the amount for all office supplies overall? Like, what's the complete budget for office supplies? Is it $10,000, $20,000?
If you don't have that, Ms. Redmond, I know we just pouncing on you with that now. Maybe between now and before our next board meeting, could you get that total amount? Because I know I you for that.
49 0149 0160 or 0161.
Okay, let's back up. For housing. Yeah. So page 6 for housing department. Denise, did you add your person that you needed for housing?
I never removed it out of there.
So what is that under the salaries?
Yes.
Do you know the amount?
There's no additional person in this budget for housing.
Okay. Do you know why we don't have an additional person for housing? I know we all agreed at the last meeting that we need another person for housing.
It was not submitted to me during the budget preparations.
Okay.
It was submitted to the previous person. It was submitted. I have my copy.
Okay, well, we need to add another person for housing, a clerk, and a budget for that. So we can do that at a later date, but we need to work on that.
Okay, so I understand that $217,400 in salaries will be increased. Is that a full-time or part-time person, Ms. Fields?
It was full-time.
Do we know what that salary was?
Before it was at 25.
And that's $25,000 a year full-time?
That's what it was. That's what it was in the last year. And since we couldn't increase it, I just put it in for the same one.
So you never got the person?
No.
So who comes out of this salary, this budget for housing? This $234,000. Whose salaries is that?
The $217,400 is made up of Kimberly Alston, Denise Fields, Sharon Harris, Charles Johnson, Wesley Spencer, and Brian Thigpen.
So what is Brian considered? Is he he works in housing?
You're in the housing budget.
He is in the housing budget. He is physically in the police department, but his salary comes out of the housing budget.
Do you know why?
Was not included in that. I can't answer that.
We're under Housing Department, page 6 of 11, salaries regular, 0147421. And what we're saying right now, these are combined salaries where code enforcement and inspections are included under Housing Department. So there are a myriad of positions under housing as opposed to just being Ms. Fields and another worker that she's requesting.
But I'm looking at the amount on my form, it's the original draft, it says 210. And I see from Nelson at the line item, it says 217, so they're two different drafts?
Mrs. Craig, do you have the revised copy on the back?
This is the one was just handed out a few minutes ago.
There is a revised copy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the one you're looking at is null and void. We have a new one just distributed about 10 minutes ago. Do you all have the new one, Ms. Creighton? Okay, that you're going to get totally confused with that one. Is Lawrence still here? There are no more copies left on that table back there? Okay, thank you. You can proceed, Ms. Redmond.
Okay, so for the housing, are we adding the 25,000 to her budget for her extra person?
Well, we have to meet on that one because this is the first I'm hearing. I was assuming, because I know Ms. Fields has been asking for that person, I was assuming that number was included in this gross number.
Okay, so this is not a final budget meeting.
Well, these numbers, again, as I said earlier, and if I didn't, I apologize, some of the metrics are going to change in these numbers. So these numbers not exact as they would be proposed 1 week from today at our regular board meeting. So that number would change also, the one in question. Is there anything else? Anybody have a question in housing? I noticed contractual services dropped down significantly on 0147597. What did we save in bringing it down that much, Ms. Redmond?
That includes our inspectors, correct, Denise? Carneal, is he in there? And I don't remember what else is in there. 597. Yes.
All right, so these are inspectors outside of the ones you've listed, such as the electrical. I just heard you mention the electrical inspector's name. But is there something else included in that? Because
this includes our inspectors that receive 1099s. They are not actual employees.
Okay. Are there any more questions on page 6 before we go forward? Okay, thank you. You can go to the next one.
Page 7 of 11. Again, there were no changes to 0149573, 0160549, and 0161598. Page 7 of 11. That brings our total expenses to the general fund for $20,351,712.77, thus creating a deficit for the general fund of $2,809,010.02.
Okay. If we could skip, can you go to the next one, page 9, so they can see the condition of the Melanie Fitness Center, page 9. Because the other ones are TIFs. What are the others? Bonds, yes.
The next will be our restricted funds.
Page
7. a portion of page 8. On the bottom of page 8 will be the water fund. We have anticipated revenues for the water fund to include water payments as well as meter replacements of $5,893,319.96. If you go to page 9 of 11, our expenses for the water department projected at $6,156,711.40, creating a deficit in the water fund, Fund 51, of $263,391.44.
Question, does this include the increases that we would do under sewer, or that would be a separate?
Sewer is a separate fund, son.
Okay.
It's Fund 55.
55, okay.
Which is found on page 9 of 11.
So that we understand, so everybody's on the same page on page 9, our expenses, we have a deficit in the water fund. Is it because the water that we pay on our quarterly water bill, we're behind yearly at about over $250,000, that $263,000? Is that what that means to the layperson looking at this?
Basically, what that means is we are paying more to the city of Chicago than we are collecting from the residents of Dolton for our water.
So residents, so you know, when you look at that number, and you really should make an asterisk there, that means that whatever we're paying per unit to the city of Chicago, and by the way, I believe that rate increases, I think yearly. If I remember, the last one was January. That means we're not being charged as residents a rate that we can at least break even. It's not that the village should make money off of servicing residents to receive money, but we have a deficit this year of $263,000 because we're behind. We're paying more for our water than that's being distributed. Is that fair to say?
Correct. That's being collected.
Yeah, Trustee Stubbs want to add into that.
If I may, and that's not to pay this amount for the employees that work in the water department too. So we too are picking up that burden. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, don't forget, make your notes so you can do this at the end. So please don't forget your question. Did you want to address that concern of the trustee? Did you hear that? Concerning the workers in that department and that deficit, that includes paying the workers.
That is correct.
Yes.
Salaries are included in a deficit.
Yes. Okay. What's next?
Next, we have our sewer fund, which is Fund 55.
Same page.
Page 9 of 11. Projected revenues are $512,376. Total expenses, $300,330.57. We are recognizing $212,000 for the sewer fund. This fund is not upside down at this point.
Would that be a surplus we're looking at?
Yes. We can go to page 11. We can skip page 10 and go straight to page 11. Fund 60, Melanie Fitness Center. The last page, page 11. Total revenue projection, which will include membership as well as any rentals or retail sales, $263,757. Total expenses, $378,460.18. Net loss of $114,703.18.
Oh, yeah. Yes, so to bring, in the layman's terms again, on the Melanie Fitness Center, which is labeled as Recreation Center Enterprise. For those of you who lived here any length of time, you know that the Melanie Fitness Center was built, I believe, in 2001 with grant monies received from the state of Illinois through, I believe, Representative Shaw at that time. And this recreational center has not been able to show any positive cash flow as far back as I can remember, which would be about 2003 when I was a member. We have to make some hard decisions about this fitness facility, just like we had to make hard decisions about the Dorchester. As you know, we sold the Dorchester because it was costing you and I approximately $80,000 a month to keep the place open. Right now, if you look at the numbers right here, it'll tell you what you and I pay to keep the recreational center open. So with this, under your strong consideration, we have to make some changes as far as this recreational center is concerned. We have to make some changes in salaries that are being paid. We have to make some changes as far as fees being collected and, of course, to generate revenue. The number one way that any municipality generates revenue, as we all know, we mentioned this before if you look at those numbers, and take this home and study it too, to know it, is the generation of revenues through real estate tax. As you all know, we have approximately 1,100 homes in the village of Dolton that are either in pre-foreclosure, foreclosure state, or bank sale. And I'm sure anybody, if I ask you to raise your hand, you probably have 1 or 2 abandoned homes on your block. As you know, we need to turn those properties around and put them on the tax rolls, which will help eliminate much of this debt that we have. When we came together as a board to look at reducing salaries and cutting salaries, you know, you got to separate that these are just numbers on a paper. These are persons' livelihoods that that's in the balance. But those decisions have to be made. The politics has to be removed out of this because this is nothing but hard numbers. You cannot spend more than what you're bringing in. If our budget is approximately $30 million, then we should be spending how much a year? 30 million or less, unless we can find other ways to generate revenue. And our goal is to have what you call reserve funds. There are many municipalities, they collect more than what they spend out, so they have what we call reserve funds where you can do special projects. You know, as new buildings, new construction, you know, more park area. There are lots of projects that we can do, but we can't talk about reserve funds right now until we get a hold of this budget. So right now, if there are no members on the board that have any questions, we'll take it to the residents. But if any trustees have any comments,
if I can,
feel free to
Chair.
step in. Thank you. Mr. House is recognized.
Well, one thing I want to commend Trustee Muhammad as the chairman of the Finance Committee on keeping us on track to make sure that we have a budget in on time. The deadline for us to have it in is July 31st. And because of the gathering of the people and everything, I think that we're on track to do that, which is a big thing. Secondly, thanks to Ms. Redmond for the work that she's done in compiling these numbers. And separate from that, I want to highlight that the last year was the first year we've had an unqualified audit, which is a huge deal for us as the Village of Dolton, because that means that even though these are numbers on paper, the auditors independent of us have come in here and said that these are good numbers on paper. In years past, we either had unaudited financials or we've got different versions, which meant the auditors came out and said we can't find it, but right now we do have solid numbers to work from. So I think we should commend both on the efforts. When Trustee Muhammad and myself were meeting, we talked about having this as an open forum for the residents, because as we see it, we have 3 different options. One option being to raise fees in the form of whether it's property taxes, water, or things. The second option being to cut, but any cut that we do means a reduction in services to all of us as residents of Dolton. And the third option is to pass an unbalanced budget, which we know is not the most financially sound thing to do. However, there are options with an unbalanced budget that we have in terms of the sale of the Dorchester, which could generate enough revenue, increasing in grants. So there would be a strategy around that. But those are really the three options that we face at this time. And at Trustee Muhammad's direction, we decided that we wanted to have a town hall meeting or this meeting here to hear from everybody here what your pulse is, because as we make a vote, we should be making a vote with your interest in mind and having heard your voice.
Thank you, Trustee House. I want to add to that also that we also agreed, Trustee House and myself, if it's permissible and if it's within the law, that we would like to visit this budget every quarter, every 3 months, meeting with Ms. Redmond and department heads to make sure that we're staying in line on this budget. Whether it be weekly, quarterly, I think we need to be more involved on how these monies are spent and how these monies are allocated. So we have to get more involved because, again, our template is the audits that we have, and those audits are available to you if you go on the website, vildolton.org, and go to the Transparency tab, and you go to the ordinances and also to the audit. You'll see for the last 3 audits, we're trying to make it so we have less notes as possible to get our village back into fine financial state. Are there any other trustees with any statements before we go to citizens' address? Yes, recognize Trustee Stubbs.
Thank you. I would just like to also remind the residents that we used to get state funds also that was cut off due to the state crisis. So the monies that we receive, we no longer get. Now that they have passed a budget, I have faith that we're going to receive some money. And in the meantime, this is not to hurt anybody, but to be mindful of the money that we spend. A lot of things, after looking over it and looking over the budget and talking with a trustee, or because we are not allowed to speak more than one at a time. Only 2 trustees could talk at a time. And I want to commend you guys for coming out here, and also I would like to commend the trustees for putting so much effort into this budget and talking about different line items. And I definitely don't want to forget Ms. Redmond. Ms. Redmond, I want to thank you for the hours that you spent preparing this, putting it together, and going over different line items, picking up the phone. We changed our minds, so on and so forth. But this wasn't easy, and we still have work to do. And all of this is for the interest of the village of Dolton, to make this a better place that we live. So any decision that we make with your input is not an easy one. It's not an easy job to sit up here and say, well, maybe we need to add any money to our sewage, water bill, or whatever we come to agreement on, to make budget cuts in people's salaries. We were fortunate enough that I don't know if I'm spilling the bag, we had some people to do early retirement. That was a blessing. That saves us thousands and thousands of dollars. So I want to commend everybody for even coming out here today, taking time out of your schedule to be concerned about our community, because this is our community, and we don't want to have a situation like the state of Illinois and not have a budget for 2 years, and then all of a sudden everything go up at one time. Thank you and good evening.
Okay, if there are no one else on the board with any comments, we can go to citizens' address. If you would line up with your questions and concerns, and maybe some input that can help us eliminate this 2.8, maybe you have that in the bank, you can loan it to us at a low interest rate, and that'll wipe it out right there. Good, our first volunteer.
Good evening, everyone, trustees, residents, employees of the Village of Dolton. First, I want to commend the Board of Trustees for working very diligently. I've been present at all budget meetings, and I see that you've worked very hard to try to reduce this deficit. I'm glad that you were able to change it from 5.1 to 2.8. And I just need some clarity on some things. As Ms. Redmond stated, you decreased things, you eliminated things. How did that offset the 2.1, or did that offset the 5.1? I wasn't clear of how that was balanced. Was that balancing the budget, or is that what we're doing moving forward? Can anyone answer that?
The decreases that, or the adjustments that were made, were to reduce the deficit from 5.1 million down to 2.8.
Okay, good. Thank you. The other question, real quickly, we talked about the water bills that we're paying a lower weight than what we've been billed. Will part of that be offset from the increase that you made to the businesses versus, I'm not sure if we're going to see an increase, or is that increase going to be offset from the business increase?
That's a good question, because I think it's a gross number. We'll confer with Brian Marciniak, and we can get those numbers and see what portion is coming from businesses or commercial accounts and residential accounts. So we'll get with the supervisor over at the water department to find out what percentage comes from them and what percentage comes from us, so we can offset it.
Okay, my second part to that question is...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Key, I just want to see if I can confirm with Ms. Redmond. If I understood it correctly, the increase was not sufficient enough to cover the deficit. It minimized it, but it didn't offset the deficit in total.
That is correct. That's why we're still showing a deficit of $263,000 in the water department, in the water fund. Sorry.
Okay, so I noticed that my water bill is late. It's covering months that we've passed already. If we get caught up, would that reduce that deficit as far as in billing? Because it appears that we're behind in billing on the water bills.
That will not make a difference in terms, because we're behind, but it's still all annually. So if
So you took that into consideration?
Yes.
Okay, and a suggestion here. I see we have a surplus here. Is it possible you can use that surplus to offset that deficit in the water bill? Because it looks like you have a surplus in Fund 555. That's on page 9, the sewer fund, of $212,045.43. Can that surplus offset the $263,391 in the water bill?
We can do what's called an interfund transfer.
Mm-hmm.
The board has to, and Mary Kay, please correct me if I'm wrong, has to pass an ordinance for that, or resolution, one or the other, in order to do the interfund transfer.
Okay. So as a resident, I would ask that you guys would consider that versus increasing our water bills. Those were things that we were told would not increase. So I'm hoping that when we're looking at this budget, we find ways internally in this budget, within this budget, to offset this deficit before we pass it on to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. You held to your 3 minutes. I appreciate that. Whoever comes up, please try to get your points off in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm talking about the water bill also. My name is Joan Van Haren. I live at 15543 Drexel. My question is that, from what I understood from Ms. Redmond, the deficit is due to the amount that was due versus the amount that was collected. It's not that we're being overcharged for water or something, but that the residents are not paying. Am I wrong in that? The residents are not paying?
We have quite a bit of residents that are not current with their water. The last time that I have run the reports, we still had $1.8 million uncollected water that's over 120 days or over.
And what are the steps that are taken when a person hasn't been paying their water bill?
We are in the process of being very aggressive with shutoffs. We send out delinquency notices, and then the next step will be shut off.
How successful has that been in the past?
That I will have to talk to our water supervisor to get that information. I don't have that.
The reason I'm asking is because I think some residents think that paying a water bill is optional, that it's a human need, and that people don't have to pay their water bill.
I am a resident of Dolton. I have to pay my water bill, just like all other $7,000.
I'm referring to a person on my block many years ago. Somehow his water bill ended up on my lawn, and I picked it up, and they hadn't paid their water bill. And then I made some mention to him, and he didn't know that his water bill wasn't being paid. But more importantly, he has a very, very good job. Right now, they have, among other cars, a Cadillac SUV. Why would that kind of a person not be paying their water bill if they didn't think that somehow it is optional? I mean, I think we need to be more aggressive and assertive for people who think maybe that in this living situation it's not so important, that they can glide by because it's a human need. And I'd like maybe some emphasis to be put on the duty of the citizens to pay their water bills.
Well noted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Charles Walls, 15625 Ingleside. Kind of to continue that point, but maybe not with water bills. I was taking a look at line item 0100322 on page 1 for vehicle licenses. So just quick calculations based on the $330,000 budget, it sounds like if we're averaging $35 or so per vehicle, we're budgeting for about 8,250 cars to pay their licenses. Does anybody have an idea of how many cars there are registered in Dolton?
That's a good question. Those metrics are internal, and I believe the last understanding I have that we match it with the state of Illinois, who has registration, and those records were being matched with what we have. So there is a hard number that you're referring to. I just don't have that in front of me.
So if we're assuming that there's 20 some odd thousand residents here, and the average household has at least a car, then by this estimate, we're accounting for a lot of free riders. Because if there's 8,200 residents that we're accounting for at an average of about $35 a piece, there's 40.
Average 30.
So then there's
Yeah,
whatever the numbers are. You understand what I'm saying?
I see where you're headed.
So from an enforcement perspective, more than half of the residents of Dolton aren't paying for the service, and we're paying for it on their behalf. And so when you think about a $2.8 million deficit, even an additional 8,000 is probably a good $320,000 of revenue that we're missing out on. Maybe there's an opportunity to hire one person at $30,000 whose job is enforcement, and that their success is deemed by the revenue they bring in from the license collection.
Excellent idea, and that's part of our challenge is enforcement. If you enforce many of the, like the young lady before you talked about those who don't pay their water bill, there has to be enforcement in that. There has to be enforcement in those who refuse to buy a village sticker. There has to be enforcement for those who don't respect a stop sign and fly through a stop sign and feel there's no repercussion. So oftentimes our challenge is enforcement of the statutes that are on the books in order for us to generate this revenue. When you think of laws, that law, 98% of the people respect that law. I know a lot of people were lined up the last day of, was it June, to get that village sticker. Those are the individuals who respect the law. They say, I'm getting this sticker because I don't want to pay the extra fee that goes up each month.
I would push back on the 98% number and make it more like 30%.
That actually respect the law?
Because if 30%, if we're accounting for $330,000, for $35 a sticker, what we're saying is 30% of the people respect the law.
Yes. Again, I don't know that number in Dolton. I'm talking about as a rule, most people abide by a law or rule. It's that percentage that we're paying for, is what you're saying. So
Absolutely. And
I think we all
in
agree
this case, it's
enforcement.
7%.
Yeah, but we all agree enforcement is definitely needed, without a doubt.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And that is something that we are talking about right now, is the hiring of meter maids to do exactly what you're talking about, is to go around and ticket cars that do not purchase city stickers. But we have been talking about that the last couple of weeks.
It's just like a party. People a little reluctant to get up and dance. Okay, we have one now.
When they asked a little bit ago for the actuals on all of the things that was purchased, it's already in here as your line items before for the whatever they were slotted for. So if you're looking at trying to find out from Ms. Redmond, it's already on here, what they purchased and what they didn't purchase, depending on what they fall under, whether it's public works or it's housing or whatever it is. It should be the actual numbers. When I was in office, we put in an overweight truck fines. When I'm looking at the overweight truck fines on page 1 of 11, in 2015, there's no amount. In 2016, there's no amount. No actuals or amounts in there, so I don't understand why there's nothing in for those, because I know there was overweight trucks in several of those areas. Then another thing I was looking at, most communities that have cars for sale, they get a tax, and the tax is supposed to come back to the community. I don't see anything about car sales here and taxes being bringing in revenue for the village. I don't see anything on here. Robert, remember I asked you, and you said you were going to look into that? I don't see anything on here. So I don't think we're collecting anything for all the cars that's for sale all over the streets and in parking lots and people's homes and all over. There should be something. And the other thing is when I'm looking on page, let's see, revenue for sewer, page 9 of 11, at the very bottom, there's something called contract collections. What is that?
When you pay your water bill, you're paying for water, trash pickup, and for water, refuse, and sewer. It's on your water bill. There are 3 different buckets.
Okay, so these are our actuals for that? So when I look at what we did in 2015 as actuals, and I look in 2016 as actuals, what happened in 2017 as actuals? Those are giant numbers when I get over here.
In 2017, there was a reclassification done. These figures that you see on page 9 for actual, those were actually in the general fund prior to fiscal year 17.
Ms. Bendale, if you can, I got lost a little bit on that last one. Which area are you referring to?
I was looking at the contract collections.
It was on page 9?
Yeah.
The last
9.
one on page 9 of 11,
Okay.
under revenue,
It was reclassified.
sewers
Thank you.
and revenue.
Did you want to answer our first one concerning the?
Also,
Don't
operating
forget.
supplies, I don't see anything under 652 until 2017.
And we're past our 3-minute limit.
Well, there's a lot of vacant holes in here. Overweight trucks. That was a big one. I don't understand. I know there was money collected. It's not on here.
That one, when we went through the budget previously, and we spoke some with Chief Collins, that is a conservative number. Well, 0 was put in there because we don't want to have the implication that we are trying to have a quota on tickets for that. So we do recognize that that is an underrepresentation on the budget, but we feel that it shows that we're not targeting people, and then it also makes it more conservative so that if we're able to balance the budget or come close, then then our budget will be intact to come the end of the year.
And also the water bills. I don't know, how many have you guys looked at your water bill? The date on your water bill is from January 1st until March 31st. And we're in August, almost. We're almost August. We're going to be, pretty soon we're going to be in August. So that's 2 billing cycles that we've been through and we haven't collected.
We'll meet again, as I mentioned earlier, with Mr. Brian Marciniak, because we've been getting that complaint that people are getting their bills from the last quarter. So we'll get with the supervisor in that department. But thank you, Ms. Bendel.
And we did put in the budget additional meter readers, because that's part of the problem, is getting the meters read on time. And so we have additional meter readers in this new budget.
Good evening. I'm a resident at 1336 East 146th Street, Sharon. Trustees, reiterating on the water bill, my concern is it because we have a deficit because there's an interest because of our past due bill? They charge us an interest on that? That's why it's in a deficit form? No, it's just that we are not bringing in enough money. But, you know, the comment is, if we raise our water bill or don't, the trash and sewer, I want those services. So I don't mind paying a little bit more. I want my street, I want my trash, I want my sewers serviced. And at some point, everything is going up. That's why you get a raise at work or you manage it out. And the same thing here to me is for the village. And the comments about people not paying the car stickers and the water bills, I sort of resent that. I've been out here too long and would like to move and sell my house. But all of us who've been out here, we've been good residents. We have a whole new group of people out here who are renting houses. They rent houses, they move around like gypsies from one house to another in several months. They don't pay water bills, they don't pay fees, they don't buy car stickers because they back into the city, then they come back out here because people want to rent their houses, they didn't sell them, so they want to make some kind of money to pay those property taxes. All this has to be taken into consideration. But overall, sir and ma'am, most of us who've been out here, we pay our utility bills, water bill, taxes, and everything else. That is all I have to say to that. And secondly, for bringing in revenue, we have an excellent golf range. More people are playing golf. We need to do something with that golf range to add people to pay to come out here, Med City or Harbor Site, because a lot of people are getting into golf. I've been a member of Melanie ever since it opened, and I don't even go, and they collect my money monthly because when I decide to go, it's an excellent workout because it's a very few workout where women have their own private steam room and whirlpool section, and men too, off. Because in most of the clubs, and I've been to most of them, where they either share a whirlpool or they share a steam room. We don't have to in Melanie. So I think we need to think on greater ideas to get people come out here and see the advantage of that. The only disadvantage, we don't have an upstairs running indoor track, but you have all the running treadmills. You have excellent people who will show you how to do zombie, all that stuff. And so we should try to find ways to promote and get more revenue from the well, we can sell it, fine. But I mean, it offers something, the village, that a lot of villages don't have. And a lot of people leave here and go to the one on 119th over there that everybody rants and raves about, and go to South Harlem, you know. So we need to support the village too as well. That's the revenue, I think. Property, Amazon.
And we're past our 3-minute mark.
Well, I want to speak, she gave her extra minute. This is on bringing in revenue. Amazon, here it is in the paper, has new locations of hiring bringing locations into South Suburb? Why don't Dolton write a proposal so we can have a work location here? They have them in the various suburbs already, but they're going to promote other suburbs, Aurora and so forth. Why can't we be the first one to have a work site with Amazon out in the South Suburbs? Someone write up that proposal. We have enough idle buildings and old factories. We could encourage that. That would bring us up, and would bring us something that really would be worth out here. Training workers, people coming to work. Besides fast food and fast services, have nothing to do with that. But I'm for long-term commitment. Amazon was in Chicago's Tribune. We need to check that out and set up a proposal. And last, all the housing banks. Why aren't they accountable for their property taxes and maintenance fees? I take care of more bank-owned houses than the village. I do more maintenance out there than the village. And why aren't they made accountable? I want someone to answer that. Those houses that are still owned by the bank, foreclosure.
We're going to address that at
We're
going to address it at the next board meeting on next Monday. That's actually part of the agenda. Thank you so much. Come up to the microphone. Give us your 3 minutes.
It felt to me like I was being addressed when the water bill was being referred to as being paid by most of the residents. No, there's no doubt about most, I suppose. And it shouldn't be made a racial issue either. It's a black and white issue in terms of numbers on paper. There are people who are not paying their water bills, and why aren't they paying them? What can we do to get that money? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no more persons for citizens address, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee of July 10th.
Second.
It's been seconded.
At 6:30 p.m. Roll call. Trustee Muhammad?
Aye.
Trustee House?
Aye.
Trustee Henyon?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.